Hey folks, it's Ray at DCRainmaker.com here, and today I've got your in-depth review of the Garmin Varia Radar RTL515 and RVR315. There's so many code names here. All you got to know is there's two new radars. One's a big one and one's a little one. The big one's the exact same size as the previous ones. They do all the exact same things except one new major feature, which is both of these new radars have Bluetooth in them, Bluetooth Smart in particular, and that allows them to connect to third-party apps as well as Garmin's own apps on smartphones. So that's the main headliner feature here. Now, if you're familiar with Garmin's radar units in the past, they've been around for about a half a decade or so. This is the third iteration. And from a fundamental standpoint, there's no major changes here. There is the new addition of Bluetooth Smart and a slightly bigger battery on the RTL515. But beyond that, it's kind of more or less the same thing. They have added as well a new peloton mode. Yes, I said peloton mode. No, not that peloton. Peloton, like the original word peloton for a group of cyclists. You have the same word that peloton tries to sue everyone else for using. But in this case, it's just simply meaning that if you're in a group of cyclists, it'll go ahead and reduce the brightness of it. Well, you'll reduce it because it's a manual feature, so that it's not so bright anymore. It's as simple as that. And before we get too much further, I know a lot of folks that don't know anything about cycling radar are like, why the heck would you need a cycling radar? And why would you just use a mirror anyway? Those cost like 10 or 15 bucks. These cost a lot more than that. And that's true. A mirror would work, and a mirror does work, and that's fine, that's great. I would also say that battle has been fought and not decided for, again, a half a decade now. Either on one side or the other side, there's no real changing your opinion. For me, though, what I find useful about the cycling radar is primarily out on country roads, quiet roads, where you're out there for many, many hours to be able to pick up a car that's approaching you from behind before you might be able to see it. Or if you're fatigued or something like that, so that you know it's there. I've also found it super useful in mountain passes when I'm descending, where the wind noise is really high and you can't hear cars approaching from behind, to be able to make the right decision on whether or not to let that car pass, pull over, or whatever the case may be. It does not work in cities. I'll tell you that straight up front. It's pretty much useless in cities. I wouldn't bother using it there. Technically, it works just fine, but I don't think there's much value in it. So with that, let's crack open the box here. We're going to start with the RTL515. Again, this is the successor to the existing RTL510 or 511 if you're in Germany. So we go inside here. We've got a micro USB charging cable. Come on, Garmin, USB-C, all the things. You can do it. I know you can. We have some mounts, and then we've got the rest of the, there we go. And here is the actual radar right there. On the side of the box, you'll see the specs listed right there. The only thing that's changed between this box and the previous box is it went from 15 hours to 16 hours of battery life, and then they added the Varia app compatible, literally identical every other bit of it. Keep in mind that 16 hours is if you're in day flash mode. If you're in one of the other modes, it drops down to 7 hours. So if you're in, for example, always on mode or night flash, it's only 7 hours of battery life, which isn't a ton of battery life. I was hoping to see that maybe increase a bit more, but I guess that is what it is. Any case, here is the RTL515. Go ahead and just pull off the top. Tape is stuck. There we go. Okay. And you can see on the back of it here, it's identical to the RTL510. If I go and zoom this in, whee, there we go. You'll see that from the back, it's identical. The only difference, the only thing, is there's this little Bluetooth logo right there versus not right there. And of course, I know it says the name, but that's cheating. Side, same. Front, same. Side, same. It's the same weight. I've done all the things, it's the same. So if we crack open the bag of mounts here, this allows you to mount it on your seat post. Now what it has is the plastic part. You'll notice it's a Garmin quarter turn mount. We'll get the old one out of the way here. It's a Garmin quarter turn mount, so that means you go ahead and you snap it in place, and like this, and it goes onto your seat post. And these are for different types of seat posts. So if you have a bit more of a squared off seat post, you could use this, versus this one here is a bit more rounder seat post, like that. Again, they just slap in place there, versus this one here is for a typical aero seat post that's more triangular. And they go on there using one of the two rubber bands, snapping like this, and on you go. There's even like third-party mounts out there. There's tons of cool stuff like on Shapeways or on Amazon. Do saddlebag mounts and mounts for, I mean, all the crazy stuff. People have been doing this for years. And again, the micro USB cable right here. There we go. And this goes ahead and it connects down into the bottom right there. Now setup is pretty easy and pretty straightforward here. I'm gonna grab my Edge 530 and just get this all set up and added. So I'm gonna go ahead back to the main menu here and go up to sensors, and we'll go add sensor. And now I'm gonna turn this on. And you want to validate that that little purple light is blinking. That means it's in pairing mode. And then we go ahead down and search for radar. You can also search for all things and get the radar or the bike lights individually. And this is the one at the bottom that I want. Click Add Sensor. You give it a second, it's going to form its light network. And that's because the Varia radar is actually two things. It's an ANT Plus cycling radar. That's an official device profile standard type, open standard. And then there's also the light network side of it. That way I can control the lights. And you can see right there when I did that, I have two. This is the radar one right there, and this is a light one. So effectively it's two different sensors. Though to you it'll all be kind of one for most general usage. If I open this up on the radar, I can go down and I can look at the alert settings. I can change whether it has a color overlay or not, and it'll make sense in just a moment. I can change whether the vehicles are shown on the right-hand side or the left-hand side. And I can change the tones from a multi-tone to the single tone. That's a single tone, and that's multi-tone. The reality is this is compatible with all sorts of devices. Wahoo's ELEMNT, Bolt, and Roam, the Stage's L50 and M50, the Karoo series, so the original Hammerhead Karoo, and presumably the Karoo 2 as well. And I think Sigma's also said they're going to add it, so it's not just a Garmin thing. And of course it's supported on virtually every Garmin bike computer made in the last, I would guess, like 6 or 7 years at this point, and most of their watches as well. Okay, now before we head out on the road, a quick note: if you're finding this video useful or interesting or something like that, just simply whack that like button right now. It really helps out this video and the channel quite a bit. So once you're on your bike and you got this thing all mounted, it's going to show you cars approaching from behind. And the way that does that is these little dots there. Each dot represents one car, one vehicle, and it goes from the back or the bottom of the display all the way to the top. That indicates how far it is away from you, up to 140 meters. So I find it actually you can detect a little bit further than that as well. So it goes from 140 meters up to 0. So as the car is approaching you, it's this amber, kind of orangey yellow color. And then once all the cars are clear, it turns green. It can display up to 8 cars at a time on the screen. In case there's also a red zone alert as well. That's when an overtake speed is super high. In that case, the difference of the speed between the car and you is considered concerning, and so it gives you the red overlay instead. Now, the key thing to understand about Varia, and this has been true since the very beginning, it's all about the relative speed between you and that vehicle. And that's how it works. It's looking for things that are overtaking you from behind. This is on the, again, the back of your bike, so it's not looking at anything in the front. It's purely from behind there, and it's trying to see things that are closing that gap. And by things, I literally mean things. It can be a car, it can be a truck, it can be a cyclist, it can be a moped, it can be a train, or even a plane. Anything it could detect from a radar standpoint that's going to close that gap, it's going to show you on this. So that gets to the next question. What happens if you're riding in a group, a peloton if you will? No problems. It will not detect or alert all the people that are in your group because you're all traveling at the same speed. Now if a car comes up behind you and there's enough of a gap between all the cyclists, it will actually show that on your display. Which does bring up one of the minor new features, which is the new peloton mode. And that simply just goes ahead and reduces the flashing brightness on the unit. So you see right here, this is the always on mode right there. That's kind of the always there, always on. I press it once more, and you can see it dimmed it just slightly. I know it's really hard to see. It doesn't dim it a ton, it's just slightly. And you press it again, and now it's a daytime pulse. And you press it again, and now it's a nighttime pulse. Press it one more time, it shuts off the light entirely. So now you're just on radar only. And you go again into the full daytime always on mode. Now, what about false positives? Honestly, none. I mean, it depends on how you define a false positive. Is a train a false positive? I don't think so. It's approaching me from behind, looks no different than a truck, even though it's on a track next to me. But I have not seen false positives here. Every one that I've looked at, I can account for something that was overtaking me. Sometimes a car will churn off. So obviously, if a car is overtaking me and it makes it churn off, this won't, continue to show the car anymore. It disappears off the grid. But that to me is a valid way of demonstrating that traffic. But let's talk about the big new feature, which is app compatibility. So grabbing my phone right here, you will see this is the new Varia Radar app. It is super simplistic. That's its design. I can click on pair devices right there. And then you see it's found Varia Radar 42. That's mine, yep. And now what happens is the exact same as what happens on the Garmin Edge device. So outside, you can see the cars approaching. It shows it in yellow first. And then if there's fast moving cars, it shows it in red with a little squiggly line, indicating which one is a fast one versus which one is a normal speed car. And then once the cars are gone, it goes to green. And that's it. Like if you look at the app, you can see your battery status at the top and the fact that it's connected. That's it. Over on the right-hand side right there, you can see the devices that are listed in there. So there's that. That's the one I got right now. And you can see my settings. I can turn on or off sounds or vibration. And that is the sum total of things to tap on. That's it, which is fine. It's simplistic, but it's more than just the Garmin Varia Radar app. Sure, the AMP Plus side of the Varia Radar is open standard, but Garmin's now added in a Bluetooth Smart side as well, so that third-party apps can take advantage of it. The first app to do so is RideWithGPS. So if I go ahead into this, I can go down to Bluetooth and sensors, set up Varia Radar. I don't know if this particular unit's paired, so I'm just going to repair it right there. There we go. So it found out no problem there once I turned it on again. Click Use on that radar, and then go back into the app and go ride. And when I'm outside, it's going to show me the traffic going by in the exact same way as the Garmin. Now the colors do seem to be a little different at this point, but that may be because of the beta side of it. But it does show you the distance along the left-hand side. In this case, it's showing me in feet as opposed to meters or yards. But again, it's probably customizable in the settings as well. In the back in the settings, I can choose whether to display the cars on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, as well as audio alerts when the cars are clear or when they first arrive in the back of the radar's range. Now, I'd love to see what other apps can do with this. Right now, it's not like a purely open standard. Apps have to contact Garmin and then get approval, but I don't expect that's going to be too much of an issue. But I'd love to see them just publish the API up front or the SDK, whatever it may be, and be able to go to town on it and let things just kind of flourish. Okay, with that, I think I've covered everything there is to cover except for I forgot to unbox this one. Now, here's the thing. This one works exactly the same as the other one. This is the small one, and that's the same mounts. There we go. Same disappointing micro USB cable. And if I get it out of here, it's almost identical, except that it's smaller and without a light. So this is the RVR315. You can see when I turn it on, move that out of the way, move this out of the way, nothing exciting happens except for this little blue light right there. That indicates it's on. That's the only way you know it's on. Same mount on the back. You can see the same Bluetooth Smart logo right there. Here, I'll bring it up nice and close. There we go. Right there you can see it. Same AMP Plus logo. All the same, except it's now a very small portion of the size of this because it does not have the light. So putting the two side by side, they basically just cut off the light and called it done. So there's no flashing light on this. When cars approach you actually with this one here, they will see a flashing light in the last 30 meters or so. They won't see this here. The theory behind the flashing light is to make the car aware of you or more aware of you in case they didn't already see you. That's probably debatable, but you're not gonna get it with this. The only difference besides the size and the lack of light is that this one is $50 cheaper. This is $149 and this is $199, which brings me sort of the last thing here. In the past couple months, Garmin's been discounting their existing one down to $129 US and roughly 99 euros or pounds. And it's been selling like hotcakes. People buying this thing everywhere. It's been sold out in a lot of places, just starting to get back into stock again. And I think that price was like a spot on really good price. And I would have loved to have seen the smaller unit, the non-taillight version, sold for $129 or even $99. I think that would have been like a huge market move there. Now, for most people, you're probably not going to go out and upgrade to the new version because you've probably already got some sort of Garmin or Wahoo or whatever that's going to display this radar information. Where it is useful, though, is for folks that may not have this sort of thing on their bike. For example, myself, on my cargo bike, I don't have a Garmin on there. I just used its little bike thing that's built into it. But I do have my phone mount on there, and I often use the phone mount when I'm out riding. So now I can go and put this on the back of the cargo bike, put that on there from a display standpoint, and be good to go. So it's good for those sort of scenarios where you may be using your phone either as a primary device or potentially a backup device. With that, otherwise it works just fine. Like, it's just the Varia you know and love and you've been using for years, and there's no real downside here. Anyways, hopefully you found this interesting or something. If so, go ahead and like that like button at the bottom there, or hit the subscribe button in the corner. There's plenty more sports technology goodness, something even tomorrow for that matter, coming up over the next couple of days and weeks as companies start to warm up a bit and give us some more goods to play with. Have a good one.